Okay. So, dear colleagues, I send you greetings from very gloomy London. It's very grey today, but I'm going to talk to you about a very happy topic. And what inspired this topic was an article from The Guardian. It was a very dramatic title, something like Easter, Ramadan, Passover, a test of faith for believers under lockdown. Something, very creative. I can tell you what it's like to be a believer during lockdown. I come from a mixed background. So during Easter, the Catholic side of my family, we were doing, the traditional things. We obviously couldn't go to church, so we had church at home. So Bible readings. The Vatican was streamed live on YouTube, so we watched that. And we also had an Easter egg hunt in the garden, which was very nice. Lots of chocolate for me. Well, not too much because the dentist is closed, so I have to be careful. So that was good fun. And then now, obviously I can't speak for Passover, but I can tell you what it's like to be doing Ramadan and what Ramadan is in general. That's the topic of my speech. Under lockdown and how it's different to Ramadan under normal circumstances. Of course, it's not similar to any Ramadan that anyone's done before. My first Ramadan was actually in Madrid in the middle of August when it was very, very hot and I was very thirsty. So maybe that was not the best place to start, but it was good fun. I did enjoy it, and we are, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, in the very spiritual, blessed, holy month of Ramadan. And so I was reflecting on different Ramadans that I've had in the past, in particular the one in Madrid, because that was during my year abroad, and I was living in a house with many international people who were all there to learn Spanish. And I'll explain how Ramadan works in a second, but essentially you wake up in the morning before dawn to eat. So I was eating at around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and my housemates came home from a night out. They had been clubbing, and they looked at me and said, "Why are you eating at this time?" "Oh, are you doing that thing where you can't eat?" "Oh, well, at least you can drink." And I thought, well, I'm not going to explain to them when they're in their drunken state. So I told them about how Ramadan works the next day. And I wanted to explain what Ramadan is, what we do during Ramadan, what the point of Ramadan is, and the opportunity that it presents us with as Muslims. So essentially, Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The first one being the declaration of faith, where you declare that you believe in God and the Prophet, after which you have to say, peace be upon him. The second one is prayer. So you have to pray 5 times a day, and this is based on the position of the sun, the time of the day. So there is a prayer before dawn, then there is one when the sun is at its highest point, so around noon, 1 o'clock, lunchtime in England, essentially. Then there's an afternoon one, and then there's sunset, and then there's the night prayer. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is charity. Everyone has to give 2.5% of their salary to charity. And charity is not just, financial donations. Many different things can be charity. A smile is charity. When you're smiling to people in the streets, people at work, people at university, wherever, a smile is charity. So charity is also doing good deeds. It's not just money. And for freelancers, the working out 2.5% of your salary is a myth, but it has to be done. Then there's Ramadan, another one of the pillars, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then the final one is the pilgrimage, where Muslims go to Mecca and Medina, which is in Saudi Arabia. This is called Hajj. So let's talk about Ramadan. Ramadan, for many people, when they hear Ramadan, they think about fasting. They think about, oh, it's just that time when you don't eat or drink. It's much more than just that. So essentially, Ramadan happens every year, and it's based on the lunar calendar. So every year, it moves 10 days backwards. So when I was younger, for example, when I was in primary school, Ramadan was during the winter, and now it's kind of on 10 days back progressively. And it's, well, now in the spring. And what you do is you fast from before sunrise to sunset. So depending on where you are in the world, that could be 12 hours if you live on the equator. It can be 18 hours. I think here it's 17 or 18 hours. If you live, at the top or right at the bottom of the globe, it can be 23 hours. And a lot of people, well, I don't know a lot, but some people do actually fast for 23 hours, but others decide to follow the timings in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia. But it's, that it does, of course, have an impact on how you feel and everything, because when I was in Somaliland, I was fasting for 12 hours, and I found it easier because I was used to fasting for 18 hours. And also it's slightly easier because everybody else is fasting with you. It's not that it's difficult to see people eat. That part is fine. I don't mind people eating in front of me when I'm fasting. But when someone's cooking food, that's a bit harder. But what's also nice about fasting in a Muslim country is that you have the call to prayer. So in the UK is not a Muslim country, so you don't have the call to prayer from the mosques. But when I was in Somaliland, you had that. So, 5 times in the day, you just pause and you stop what you do. And, it's very relaxing. It's like meditating. Essentially it's, communicating with God. It's very spiritual, and you're just in a very different state of mind when you're fasting. It's total submission to God. But as I said, it's not only abstaining from food and drink, it's also a whole number of things. No sex between sunrise and until sunset. You cannot do, any of the big sins: cheating, lying, stealing, no swearing, no profanity, no backbiting, no gossiping. You must lower your gaze. Do not look at the opposite sex. I mean, these are things that you have to do in general all the time. But the difference between the reason why it's so heavily emphasized during Ramadan is that the belief is that the devil is locked away. So there are fewer temptations. So you are able to focus more on what it is you want to develop, because Ramadan is an opportunity to build habits. I'll come on to that point later on. There is a list that I'm going to give you, and I want you to get every single point, okay? This is important. Don't miss anything from this list. Not everyone has to fast. There are people who are exempt from fasting for a variety of reasons. For example, if you are sick, you are exempt from fasting. You do not fast. If you are pregnant, if you are breastfeeding, if you are traveling, you don't fast either. If you're very elderly and poorly, you don't fast. Children don't fast either. You start fasting when you're ready. There's a recommendation that children should start when they're teenagers, when they've hit puberty, and when they're ready. They can do it in parts, maybe fast half a day, and then the next year try a full day or something like that. You also can't fast if you are menstruating. So if you're on your period, you are exempt from fasting. But all of these things, if you're on your period, if you're traveling, you have to make up the fasts later. So later on in the year. Ramadan lasts a whole month. So yes, as I was saying, Ramadan is an opportunity to thrive, to flourish, to build on healthy habits that are hopefully going to last you the whole year until next Ramadan. But it's also a time to eradicate the bad habits, right? imagine you have an opportunity to focus on one thing or a few things of your choice for 30 days. Just think of how much time you spend in general eating, gossiping, talking about other people. You know, all of these things are very time consuming, and they're also a bit, it sounds contradictory, but it's also a bit energy draining. When you're fasting, when I'm fasting, I'm so productive because I don't stop and say, oh, I really need a tea. How about a chocolate break? No, you know, I don't have that option. So the only thing that I can do is work. Of course, I can rest, you know, I can pray, I can meditate, I can, you know, read Quran, which I'll come on to later. But really, it's a time for you to think, okay, where am I? You know, you're kind of taking stock of your life, of your situation. What personal goals would I like to work towards, or professional goals? Where would I like to be? And you have 30 days to perfect that, because it takes 30 days to build a habit and for a habit to last. And then when, you know, the Holy Spirit is gone and the devil comes back out, you have all these temptations and you fall back into your old habits. And then by the time the next Ramadan comes again, you focus again on creating habits that will last. You know, that's the thing. It's an opportunity for personal development, for professional development, for spiritual development. It's a whole range of things. So you can make Ramadan whatever you want it to be, you know, whether it's, you know, learning a language or memorizing Quran, or which is something that is heavily recommended. So let's talk about the Quran. The Quran is the holy book for Muslims, and the month of Ramadan is the month that the Quran was revealed, which is why Ramadan is also considered as the month of the Quran. And so many people read the whole Quran throughout the month of Ramadan, or they decide to memorize some of the chapters, which are called surahs. There are 144, so you have enough to last you a lifetime. Many people have memorized all of them. It's very impressive. And for those of us who don't speak Arabic, what we like to do, in addition to learning Arabic so that we can one day read the Quran, you know, in its original form, because the Quran has not been edited ever. It's the original, is we like to read different translations. The best gift that you can give someone is a Quran. So I have a whole shelf of Qurans that different people have offered me, and I like to compare the different translations. I actually think it's a great exercise to do, and it helps with reflection, because you have different different things that come from different translations, and they're very interesting. Then I also like to read it in French, in Spanish. I'm waiting for someone to give me a Quran in Italian because that's the next language that I'm learning, but I suspect my brother will be onto that and will gift that for me for Eid, which is the celebration after Ramadan. People also so memorize the Quran, but they also memorize the 99 names of God. Did you know that God has 99 names? For example, the merciful, the kind, the compassionate, the forgiving. There are 99 of them, and they're all in Arabic, and people strive to memorize all of that, because if you do memorize all of the 99 names, then this will protect you from the fake Messiah that will return, because we believe in the return of the Messiah, but we believe that there will be somebody who will claim to be the Messiah who is not the Messiah, if that makes sense. So yes, the Quran was revealed in the 7th century, by the way. We're in the year 1400 and something. I can't remember exactly. So it's a very special book. You can't just, you know, you have to be in a state of ablution. So that means you have to wash so that you are cleansed before you read the book. It's similar in a way to Judaism, where you have to have, you're not allowed to actually touch the Torah, but you have this tool, this pen, I'm not sure what it's called, that where you can, you know, trace what you're reading. So yes, the main difference between Ramadan normally and Ramadan during lockdown is that you cannot go to the mosque. And going to the mosque is maybe one of the best parts of Ramadan, because you really feel like you're part of a community. Everybody comes together, and you know they're all fasting too, so they're all feeling the same hunger pangs too. You know, the whole point of fasting is not to suffer. The point is empathy and sympathy with people who are less fortunate than we are, people who actually do go hungry. For us, Ramadan is easy. We know that when sunset comes, we're going to have a meal. But for other people, it's not the case. So really, it's a time for giving, and it's a time for feeding. And people go to the mosques and they feed people. You can go there and have a meal for free. No one will say no. Well, not now, but when they reopen. And in fact, when I was in Spain on my year abroad and I ran out of money, I went to the mosque to eat. Which was interesting because I was the foreigner. And it was very interesting because the Quran was not like the readings, what do you call it? The speeches that were made were not in English, they were in Spanish. So it was a very interesting exercise for me. And the important thing, the difference between Ramadan and non-Ramadan is that there is a special Ramadan prayer that you do at night. So once you finish, when you break your fast, you pray. You break your fast with dates, by the way, it's recommended. And then after that you eat, and then you go to the mosque and you do the night prayers. The night prayer is called Taraweeh, and it's very long because it's basically every day you have to go to the mosque, and the Imam will recite the Quran, and you are there standing in prayer, kneeling in prayer, for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. Different Imams do it in different ways. Some of them decide that they're just going to read the entire thing, so speed of light recitation, because you have to get through 144 chapters in just 30 days. And others take it slowly, and they select a few of the surahs, the chapters from the Quran, and they recite it during that prayer. And it's really nice, because yes, you're tired, but you have such a feeling of gratitude and community and togetherness, and it's just something that I've not experienced elsewhere. Okay. Something that I will miss is the prayers in the park. So on the last day, on during Eid, which is the celebration at the end, there are many. There's a special Eid prayer that you do, and you can go to a park and everybody's there and they pray, and it's a really nice feeling. You're out in the open air, and that's something that I will miss. I can't imagine being in a congregation now, but anyway, I'm not going to go into that. So let me just debunk some myths, like what my flatmate said about, oh, at least you can drink. No, you cannot drink. I know in Hinduism, for example, you can fast with water and with grapes, so you don't eat all day, but you are allowed to have water and grapes. But for us, you're not allowed to eat anything. You're not allowed to drink anything. You're not allowed to smoke. But some people say, oh, but it's fine. If you can eat at night, then you can just sleep all day. No, that's not the point. That's not the purpose. As human beings, we always try to bypass rules and try to make things easier for ourselves. But that's really not the point. It's not about just flipping your schedule. You're supposed to feel something. And it's not just about food. A lot of people say, oh, but you can have a massive feast at the end of the day, every day will be a huge food party. No It's about moderation. It's about cleansing yourself. It's not about indulging. It's not about greed. It's not about, oh, let me stock up on as much food as I can, to last me the whole day. Yes, you want to eat foods that are wholesome, that are healthy, because believe me, and I'm a chocoholic, I very, very rarely eat chocolate during Ramadan, because once I've broken my fast and I've had, some healthy food like oats, or I don't know, something healthy that will fill me up, I don't go for chocolate. I don't even, you know, have a cup of tea, especially because, you know, caffeine. I don't want to be up all night. And it's really, you pay special attention to what it is you're eating. You know, what is it that I'm giving to my body? People I'm saying try because it's hard. And there are all sorts of memes on this. People try to avoid eating oily foods. And really, when you eat, you're supposed to have 1/3 of your stomach should be filled with food, 1/3 with water, and 1/3 with air. So it's really not a time for you to be greedy or indulge. I mean, you shouldn't be greedy in general because it's sin. But yes. And when you break your fast and you're eating all these, you know, the dates and drinking milk and water and all the rest of it, you feel such a sense of gratitude. It's incredible. Yes, it's another myth that I want to debunk, is that we just have to stay at home and be sedentary and not move so that we can keep all of our energy. No, you can exercise. You can do whatever you like. I went for a walk this morning. Very lucky that I'm able to do that. So, you know, you can move around. It's not a time like, oh my God, you know, I'm fasting, I can't move. No, you carry on your life as normal. You go to work as normal, etc. To conclude, Ramadan is by no means a time of hardship and torture and pain. No, it's really a wonderful time with the community, even though it's all online. It's a time of discipline as well, self-discipline, because you're not, you know, you are the one who knows if you're able to fast and if you can actually do it. It's a time of devotion. It's a time of reflection. It's a very, very humbling experience, and it just helps you to reset your life. So maybe you are a Muslim, in which case Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak, happy Ramadan. But if not, maybe you would like to join the 1.8 billion Muslims out there who are working on building habits for a month. Maybe you would like to develop a habit or work on something, be it personal or professionally. In other circumstances, of course, I would have all invited you to my house to break the fast and to have a nice meal together. And of course, with some very wholesome food and some Somali tea. But that will have to wait for other times. Thank you.